The incredible, the legendary
Dana Beal,
is still alive after being killed by the milk in jail.
Right. You survived to this moment, and you're an activist. Like a true activist is somebody who's got to spend some time in the can, right? Because you have to establish.
Well, I could have.
We're fighting for something.
I could have actually taken a total rain check on that.
You might have. How long did you actually spend behind bars?
Well, I was in jail for 9 months until the milk killed me.
Right.
The milk I had every morning gave me a heart attack, and I died.
Yes.
But then, like Lazarus...
This is his ghost. He rose from the dead.
Well, actually, the ghost is inside.
Right. Stephen Said has that song.
Actually, some people claim that they smell a slight whiff of sulfur and brimstone.
When your eyes lit up again, your eyes they were dull and they lit up, and you can smell the fire and brimstone.
Yeah, right, but I avoided that place.
I thought
for
it was
a little
something
while.
else they could smell.
Anyway,
something a little more fun to smell than hydrogen sulfide gas.
Yeah. Anyway, then I was out. They basically could not pay for the surgery. They were. Because I was dead too long, they had to put me in induced coma, right? Which is this thing where they freeze you,
right?
And
freeze Reagan Bush.
Yeah, and then I was revived after 6 days. Woke up in a hospital room with a guard and my daughter, Avia, and then they had me sign some paperwork so they wouldn't pay for the surgery. Because it was ruinously expensive to freeze me, and the county was paying. This is the county where Judge Dyke was the judge, William Dyke of Madison.
Right? We met him, right? Oh no,
the old guy.
The old guy, right?
The old guy.
The old guy, the guy who was the hanging judge.
The hanging judge.
Back in the day.
Still, and they had me sign some paperwork so I could get out on appeal. I was out on appeal, which was just all, flim-flam for 4.5 months, and then I went in thinking I was going to be in for a year, and I got 2 more years.
Oh, really? And so it was basically 2 years, 9 months, right?
Yeah.
Not counting 4 months where you were out, but on appeal with a...
Yeah, and I had to sit around Madison, where I'm not really from.
Yeah.
And basically, it turned out no politicians would meet with me because they were completely awed by the pot case, which, now pot's going to be legal.
Right. You were sort of like, I hate
and
this.
And I was, anyway, the result was Wisconsin did not get Ibogaine. Now they have a huge heroin epidemic, but they're beginning to send a few people down to Mexico to get
Wisconsin.
and they hooked up with a guy named, this is a very interesting story. They hooked up with a guy named Charles Johnson, who was running something called the Ibogaine University Medical Center, which is not connected to a university. He does a good job, though, and he actually somehow co-opted one of the doctors from something called Passages Malibu, which is on television all the time too. And they started a big Ibogaine clinic in Costa Rica where they have 80 beds. And they're charging $1,000 a day, right? $2,000 if you get your own room. You don't have a roommate, right? And there's somebody, Scott Disick or something, who's in with the Kardashians.
Yeah.
And he is going down there to be treated for alcoholism. This guy's severely alcoholic. And actually, Charles should do a good job. It's called the Rhythmia Life Advancement Center. And all the people like Drew Pinsky are freaking out because somebody really famous on the Kardashians is getting into Ibogaine. They're saying it's going to kill them. Hallucinations, make hair grow on your palms, grows best on when it's going to kill you.
Who's Drew Pinsky?
Drew Pinsky is like this talking head on Oprah. Who's big in and basically, this is the guy who kept.
I know the guy now.
Okay, he kept.
That Drew through me.
He kept Charlie Sheen's wife from going down to do it for cocaine, so she ended up in jail. It's much better for people to end up in prison, you see, than to do something that gets you off of drugs overnight.
Right. So, well, there's always been, from the beginning when you first introduced me to Ibogaine, there's always been a lot of resistance.
But Ibogaine is the only
to
thing
believe that you should suffer withdrawal as your punishment from God or whatever.
Well, this is really interesting because now there's a huge controversy involving the 12-step, which is of course mandated by all the states, and they make you go into like these rehabs, and then you get out, and 4 days later you do heroin and die, right? Because it absolutely does not work. Versus Suboxone, which is the thing that replaced Ibogaine on the NIDA development list.
Have you ever done heroin in your life?
No. But I smoked rock opium, which is the same.
Because people always say to me, "What do you care about the Palestinians? You're not Palestinian."
Exactly.
What do you care about the?
And that is exactly
bombing you.
That is exactly my point. Is I'm just doing this to like upset the status quo.
Yeah.
I think these people are disgusting, and actually I believe in an ideal world, as you know, all people against marijuana would be working to reverse global warming and a new enhanced civilian conservation corps growing hemp. And, Sao Paulo, no water in the taps. They're going to have to bring water in from the adjacent river basin, which is exactly what we were talking about. Yeah.
A year left of water.
We got to bring water down from the Arctic. So we're going to have to take all these people who are polluters and
all the military people who are hiding the effects of all the nuclear waste they created over 6 years.
All the people who are against hemp, and we'll put the narcs in charge of like these vast settlements that will be in some remote area of Siberia or something, where they need to bring water down from the Russian Arctic to the Caspian Basin, or bring water down from the Canadian Rockies to the Great Salt Lake, where the water will then be transferred to California, or
from Turkey to the West Bank and Palestine.
Yeah, or like for people who can't stand the cold, they could work in the Sahara Desert, diverting the Nile to the Lake Chad. So anyway, that's a little bit.
That's massive water.
That'll
keep everybody busy for a long
Anyway,
time.
we're not talking about that today.
That's interesting stuff. All right,
tonight we're talking about the annual marijuana parade, or as it's known this year, the No More Drug War.
Can we get a zoom in on this?
Yeah, No More Drug War.
Yeah, No More Drug War. Can you zoom in a little closer, Phil? Maybe you can fill the screen. I don't know if that's possible, but this is the protest.
Right in on the thing. Yes.
How long? 50 years now? Half a century? Almost half a
Since
century?
1973. They actually did it first in 72 with Rex Weiner, but I've been working on it since 73, except for this rude interruption.
Right.
And this is the special green version of the card that was being passed out right now to revelers with green hats.
Mm-hmm. Oh, right.
And,
St. Patrick's Day, right?
Yeah, and they're actually parading around the streets.
Right.
With a drum and some signs, and they're attracting attention and giving these to people who are, we don't want to give it to every single drunk.
Well, I tell you something.
Only people who smoke pot.
I would much rather see people smoking pot than drinking.
Now let's show them the other.
Right now they're drinking like crazy.
Now the other card.
Yeah, here it is.
The other card.
Got another one here.
Yeah, the other card is the new Jim Crow themed card, just in case the cops killed another Eric Garner and we have 30,000 people in the street again, which you can almost count on, right, between now and May 2nd. So we have like different themed cards this year for the No More Drug War Parade, which will start at around 40th Street and Broadway and proceed south to Union Square, picking up the floats at 33rd Street.
Okay, great.
And we have a really interesting show tonight about our negotiations with Cyrus Vance, who promised me. I went to the new Jim Crow lecture by Michelle Alexander, and I happened to bump into Cyrus Vance. Now, this was after I had bumped into... Michelle Alexander wrote a book called The New Jim Crow, which is about the fact that they have so many black men in prison on the drug war that it skews elections.
Did you see the
so that George Bush gets narrowly elected in Florida, and we end up stuck in Iraq.
Did you see the latest I saw today about the
still stuck in Iraq.
102-page report on Ferguson that showed in the city of Ferguson they actually have more arrest warrants open than there are people who live in the town. There's more crimes than people. There is I forget the numbers.
They couldn't pay. They couldn't pay for the town.
12,000 people with 16,000 warrants.
Yeah, they couldn't pay for the town if they didn't do this.
Every single adult in that town has a warrant, and therefore can be arrested at any time.
Right.
And then and this is just one example that happened to be that managed to get out into the public and be studied. But in fact,
anyway, let's talk a little bit.
America, that the police are actually going after people.
And I know we've done a lot of shows though about Ferguson and stuff. So
but
let's
not about Ferguson, but about the idea of the authorities going after people, not just waiting for you to commit a crime and punishing you for it, but actually going after you and creating crimes to arrest you for.
Yes, but we're actually talking tonight just about a narrow focus, which is marijuana.
Which is the main one way they arrest people, right?
Well, that is a major way they do arrest people, but we're actually talking about people with life-threatening conditions. People who are going to be so expensive, like me, if you put them in jail, it's going to bankrupt the system anyway. So why do you want to arrest a bunch of AIDS patients for medical marijuana? It makes no sense. So basically what happened was, let me scroll back to January, where I'm at a panel at the New York Bar Association Drug Law Committee, and they're on the panel with Stephen Levin and Jamani Williams. This is a gentleman named Nitin Savor. And I asked him, I said, well, we used to have a deal from the previous district attorney where he promised not to arrest patients and providers, and we had buyers clubs where people could get their pot without going out into the street corner and possibly getting arrested. And Robert Morgenthau generously interpreted the medical marijuana law that was on the books then to allow this. Now we have a new law. Why can't you interpret? So basically, we don't even have the law in yet, right? It's not in operation. When it's in, it's not going to work right. But let's let people have pot for medical conditions, okay? And he says, well, talk to me about this. He gave me his number. No, in the city, in Manhattan, the most liberal place in the, in the state. And I called him up, and he said, well, there was a law, or there was a policy, but it was never written down. And what happened was every time somebody was arrested, the same calculus led to the same result, which is basically let off with a slap on their wrist. And I checked, and this actually worked. One time, an AIDS patient was arrested with a roach in his wallet and was horribly mistreated, went to jail, and died in 3 weeks. But other than that, there were no fatalities in the system.
Why are you aiming mostly at people with AIDS?
Well, just because, as you can see here, here. This is because ACT UP has endorsed it. Come on, let's focus in on this one, man. Silence equals death, okay? Right there. Silence equals death. Silence equals death. Okay, big. So that silence equals death is, no, you can't make it any bigger. Anyway, okay, I'm sorry.
Oh, here, no, hold it up.
But the point is, ACT UP.
Hold it high.
ACT UP actually has an organization, and they have a lot of influence on people like Housing Works and Vocal, and there's a potential possibility that we could have more people. Well, I'm kind of like jumping ahead. So what happened with Nitin Savor is he turned me over to a woman named Deanne Tran, who was there.
Nitin Savor?
He was the assistant chief of courts for Cyrus Vance.
Okay.
Turned me over to their legislative liaison. This is a very frustrating. After fairly nice conversations with Mr. Savor, I ran into this really frustrating brick wall person who basically said, we have to enforce the law. We have to enforce the law as written. We have to enforce the law. You understand we have to enforce the law. That's all we can do is enforce the law. And I was, well, I would ask her a question, well, okay, there's this gray area because the law allows up to 24 grams. So are you really going to like treat somebody with a card that says they're a medical marijuana patient the same as everybody else? You're going to not tell the police to lay off at least the card people? Because we can create cards. We can make cards. We were making cards before. There are people from out of state with cards. Well, I can't give you any advice.
What's a card?
A medical ID card.
So a person would have that card, and if a policeman stopped them with marijuana, they could show that card, and they would.
And basically, what is happening in reality is people with cards from other states get stopped by police now, and the police tend to let them go.
Yeah, well, I mean, we had
but they the point is
from Portland, and he has a card from Oregon, and he brings like a whole contraption and a bag of weed with him on a plane, and never gets any problems. He don't.
Yeah, exactly. So the point is, he's sitting smoking pot in the hotel next to where I live at 38th Street.
Right.
Right. So this is happening.
In the synagogue.
And all we want is for them to write it down. Yeah. To write down a simple one-line statement that would say something to the effect of, it is not the policy of this office to prosecute the bona fide distribution of medical marijuana under appropriate circumstances, that is not selling on the street corner, to seriously ill patients. Like, that is actually the policy, but we want it written down. And she said, we can't do that because that would be giving legal advice, and that's against the canon of ethics.
Also,
in other words, if we tell you anything and give you any kind of like policy statement at all, we would be like functioning as your lawyer. No. You're functioning as a district attorney and telling us what the law is.
Well, if it's unofficial.
So basically,
if it's unofficial, doesn't that mean that they could change it at any time? In other words, they could.
Oh no, it means completely.
And the 11th could be busted for no reason.
And end up in jail and dying.
Yeah.
Okay, right. So the point is, I then sent a letter to Linton Savor saying this was not a very good conversation, and you have the letter there, and it basically says if you really need to like enforce the law, if that's what you want. We have a few white collar criminals, and we think that in the spirit of like the new Jim Crow and so on, that you should like make a guilty Republican or a mortgage fraudster a roommate of every pot prisoner in America, right? And I didn't get a response to that letter. Okay, just no response. And actually, I brought up the case of Brad Gordon.
That's a bad idea with Dana.
I brought up the Brad Gordon example because Brad Gordon basically defrauded the National AIDS Brigade and put them out of business by scarfing up number 9 Bleecker Street, the Yippee Museum.
Right, which we've talked about on the show
quite a few times. And I was really, people are still really upset. And I was at a.
We have a call, by the way.
Okay, good.
Well, let's take the call.
Put the call on.
Go ahead.
Hey, this is Bob Curtis. I'm up there and talk some serious stuff.
What? You're echoing.
I'm not echoing.
Don't listen to your TV. Turn the TV down.
Your microphone's up there.
All right, go ahead.
Adjust your mic.
No, go ahead. You're on delay.
You go ahead. I'm listening to you just fine. You adjust your mic. You stop arguing and stop fighting each other.
Huh?
How come you guys don't wear any ties?
Oh. Well,
okay, sorry. Later. Sorry, we're wasting time. Come on.
Yes.
So anyway, the point is, I was wearing a tie yesterday, and I went down to a hearing, and they fixed the penalty interest for this scoundrel who defrauded the National AIDS Brigade, committed deed fraud, and perjured himself to a judge.
Okay, first of all, let me just say that
his name is Brad Gordon, and he got like $2.4 million of ill-gotten gains.
Dana, he's invited to come on the air and respond to what you're saying. I am not endorsing what you're saying. I am just
I don't think he's going to.
I have an open invitation for him to come in to respond to these.
But he won't. He won't. He just wants the money.
Right,
anyway, the story is we want the same, severity or leniency of justice for the guy who took away the place where the patient records were stored for the Medical Marijuana Buyers Club, which was 9 Bleecker. As for this patient who died after 3 weeks of being held in jail because of a roach. So, no chance of that. Well, as it transpired, I ended up like bumping into Cyrus Vance himself at Michelle Alexander's speech at the Union Theological Seminary. And I gave him a great little disc about Ibogaine, and I said, watch the Parkinson's patient, it's kind of slow, but it shows that, hey, low-dose Ibogaine cures Parkinson's. And, you know, there is somebody right now in the greater, I can't say exactly where, it's an elderly African-American gentleman who's doing capsules of Ibogaine root bark for his Parkinson's, and his gait and his diction have improved. So you can just do the plant, right, and get better. So this is very similar to medical marijuana. It's just a plant-based medicine, and it cures Parkinson's disease. And the other thing is, of course, the great fictional depiction of their office on Special Victims Unit, the 7 minutes, right? This is what you should be doing, okay? And you know, I waited, and after about
explain what that is, though.
Law and Order Special Victims Unit, there was actually an Ibogaine episode, and it shows them treating somebody, you know,
the NYPD being them.
No, actually, B.D. Wong, supposedly fictionally an FBI agent. They're trying to get this kid to testify against the guy running the kids. It's a thing for
scared straight type of thing.
Well, no, that's not even that. It's basically what it is a guy. He's basically boffing the 14-year-old girls, right? And some girl goes and gets killed because of this guy like doing weird shit. Oops, I wasn't supposed to say that.
Don't go.
But anyway, the point is, you know, the kid will not testify because the guy's also giving him heroin. Right? And nobody will testify against their heroin supplier unless they take Ibogaine. You know, and then they give the kid Ibogaine and he goes right to the, he's going to, you know.
He testifies.
Well, no, he actually has the guy hand him some heroin, and then people come in and bust him right there at the end of the show. Well, anyway, the point is, you know, there's no reason for New York to have a heroin crisis. Marijuana is not responsible for, you know, the gateway effect is not responsible for the heroin. The reason that they have a problem is they won't use the cure for drugs. Anyway, the long story short,
so you're putting the DA's feet to the fire. You're saying no more of this unofficial, we want to arrest people.
Well,
you want to see them
sent them
right out.
I sent them a fax after 5 days. I sent them a fax after 5 days.
Yeah.
And I went over the points. I says, we want to have a meeting with you. We have patient representatives, and maybe like Corey Johnson from the city council wants to meet and reinstate the Morgenthau policy, but in writing this time, so that it actually has some legal force. And while we're doing it, we'd like you to look into this matter of the Bradley Gordon, who you know, committed numerous crimes, and you're the district attorney. You can prosecute.
You're requesting prosecution.
Oh, requesting a prosecution, which is very serious.
Not, you are though.
Right, and then I brought up the thing. I said, and you know, you could, because you have a lot of influence. And I was thinking he could, like, I can think of at least one person he could, you know, a billionaire he could approach to get money. We're trying to do this Ibogaine for Afghanistan thing. And actually, right now, we've just gotten our permit to open a clinic, but there's no charitable group that will support it because between the 12-steppers and the methadone people, nobody supports Ibogaine, right? So look, the point is, I got a reply. I got a reply, and the reply was, Mr. Beal, we already know what your views are on medical marijuana. We're just not interested in talking to you any further. Okay, so yeah, so basically, they did not address any of the other stuff, and so I said, look, excuse me, but we made a serious criminal, 3-page criminal complaint and a letter that was sent to Nitin Savor, and you're not responding to that. You're not enforcing the law. This is a mockery. So you will hear from us later, and now we're picketing them every week Monday at 1 o'clock. Right, and if you really want to go down there, instead of, and do something, instead of complaining about the fact that I'm not wearing a tie, You show up at 1 o'clock on the south end of 100 Center Street. It's called 1 Hogan Place, where they have the district attorney's special entrance, right? And you can show up with us, and we'll have signs, and like we'll be handing out stuff, including this ACT UP thing.
You were there this Monday, right?
And we're going to be there every Monday until the parade, or until they have a meeting with us, or until Corey Johnson sets up a city council health committee hearing and subpoenas Cyrus Vance.
So you're putting his feet to the fire on this.
Well, no, I mean, like, it's like this. It's like, they're picking on the little kid, and then his big brother comes. My big brother is the city council. And we have, like, people from ACT UP in the gay community who have some influence in the city council. And I think they really should have, like, given me a serious answer to the letter, and they just should have already agreed to meet. So anyway, that's
with you?
Huh? Because they figure that I'm like
convicted marijuana trafficker.
Yeah, and they figure they can just blow me off. But unfortunately, it ain't me. There's like a lot of patients. The Drug Policy Alliance is very unhappy with the law they got. They celebrated, and then they started reading the fine print. They said, "This law is terrible."
The medical marijuana law.
Right, the law is written
New Jersey, New York, all these places.
Yeah, it's written by Cuomo, and it's actually worse than the situation we had under the previous district attorney, where they basically allowed people to get actual marijuana, and I was bringing it in for $3 a gram.
We have a minute left, and it just was interesting to me that Commissioner Bratton had to come forward and make some statement about so many people being murdered for dealing marijuana. I mean, what do you think that was all about?
He also said in the same article, he said, I hated the hippies.
Yeah.
We have to prosecute the war in Vietnam, and Nixon was right. Well, maybe he shouldn't be the police commissioner.
Right, and we certainly don't need 1,000 more cops if that's what's going to be.
No, man, no, definitely not. I think 1,000 Ibogaine therapists, 1,000 medical marijuana dispensary operators, that would do a lot of good. But no, we don't need more cops enforcing broken windows. And in fact, I'm going to Robert Ganji's meeting
all right,
night after
much.
tomorrow night, and we're going to do something
Dana
about
Beal.
this. Yes.